Good morning, Sandra. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Bradley. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah, I had a relaxing couple of weeks, tried to keep my laptop shut as much as possible and ready to go again. So here we are. But how was yours? You all good?
Lovely, absolutely lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, Sandra, we have some questions that we'll go through, but this week has already thrown a little bit of a spanner in the works, and maybe people could have been expecting a national lockdown, but maybe we didn't think it was going to happen. But firstly, this week already, what sort of questions are you seeing come your way from businesses?
It's interesting, Brad, because it's not so much the questions that are coming my way as people saying to me, "Oh God, here we go again. It's Groundhog Day. It's not, nothing's going to get better. Nothing's going to change." And I've got to say, Monday night, I felt very slightly like that. And then you think, well, why do we feel like that? Because actually, if we'd been doing the big picture observations, probably even back in November, when they announced that furlough was going to be extended to the end of April, the clear message that comes with that is you've got to expect us to be in and out of lockdown until the end of April. That's what we're being prepared for. And so that already starts to change where your mind can be and how you can start the planning process. But I think the other thing that I've been thinking about in the last couple of days when people are sort of saying to me, we're back to square one, is that actually we're not. We now have the benefit of 9 months of experience of working like this. And the reality is, this is going to be our experience moving forward. So I suppose the things that I'm saying back to people when they're sort of saying, what do we do? How do we get there? Is say, first of all, review, look back and identify what you've learned from 2020. Identify what went well and identify the sort of even better ifs. But then look at all of that and think about how that impacts on your business and on your clients and on your marketplace. But learn from the experience that we've gained is probably the first bit of advice I would say to anybody in trying to plan forward. First of all, do that review of what you've learned from the last 9 months.
Yeah, and when it comes to planning and preparing for 2021, what are the first steps, or what are the key things that you work with clients on, and what have you been working with them on for this year?
So before I came on to Remo this morning, I was doing a first part of a 2021 review with a client, and we've been working together quite some time. We go through this process every 6 to 12 months. And the first thing that I always talk to people about is, particularly I work with generally business owners. So the first thing that I always talk to them about is, what are your personal aspirations? Because if you know what you want from your business, you can set your business up in such a way that you can get that, and you can basically have a happier and hopefully slightly less stressful life. Running a business is stressful in the first place, but be very clear on what it is that you want to get out of this year, and then look at how your business can provide that for you. As you start to set your business goals and objectives, the key question always to be asking yourself, and this is completely regardless of Brexit, of recession and of pandemics, the question always to be asking yourself is not what do I do, but what's the purpose of my business? What solutions do I provide for people? Because ultimately that's what they will buy from us. And so with your review hat on, what do I provide for people? How has that changed in the last 9 months? What do I want to continue to provide for people going forward? And how can I be completely sure that that's what they want? So what's my communication with people like? What questions am I asking my clients? What conversations am I having with my suppliers and with my employees to find out what's actually going on in my marketplace? But identify the purpose of your business and the solution that you provide for your clients, and then double check that the solution that you think you are providing is the solution they still want from you.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because purpose has changed and businesses have had to change. I mean, our business has had to completely change, and we're quite an extreme version of that. But there are a lot of people that are changing their purpose. And something I think it was Lena Taylor mentioned in one of our earlier events. She mentioned that it's all about what problem you solve for people. That's what's so crucial, and I think that changes with people's with their purpose, and why is that so important? Why should people focus on their purpose?
Because because there's that thing, people don't buy what we do, they buy the solution we provide for them. So people don't choose to engage with somebody like business doctors because they want to sit and talk about their business. They engage with somebody like business doctors because they think by talking about their business, they will identify where they are now, where they want to be in the future, and how we close the gap in getting them there. So they're always looking at what's the bigger picture. I mean, the process that we work through with people is helping people to work through what's the bigger picture. And so it's not about let's just turn up to a network my club event on a Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. It's what's the purpose of going to that? Is it awareness and profile? Is it lead generation? Am I going to network my pub on a Friday afternoon? Because quite frankly, I've spent far too much time on my own this week and I just need a bit of, I need something away from that social isolation. What is it that people are actually buying from us? And it's something that in the networking groups I've been in already this morning, it's a conversation that's come up quite a lot about, it's not what we do, it's the solution that we provide that is absolutely key to people. And we have to keep asking the same question again. What is it that our clients want from us? How do we make sure we get that for them?
And is it valuable asking clients for that?
Absolutely.
How will people go about, how would you go about doing that?
Yeah.
What do you suggest to your clients doing that?
Pick up the phone and ask them. Simple as that. Pick up the phone and ask them. And it will be in the context of what's going on with your business at the moment. How, what are the challenges you've got? How can I support you in that? And that there are 3 key areas for success in business, and it's well, maybe you could even probably narrow it down to 2 key areas. It's around communication, whether that's to your clients, your employees, your suppliers, and particularly with what's going on with Brexit at the moment, your supply line could become really, really important. So, be talking to all of them. What's happening with your business? What's going on in the big bad world that's affecting you? How's that going to impact on me? And how can I work with you to support you through this? And then the other thing, obviously, that people have to be terribly mindful of at the moment is cash flow. Look at your costs, look at the money coming in, look at the money going out, look at where you're getting value for money, look at efficiency, productivity, look at the way in which your business is set up to maximize all of those things.
Yeah. And when it comes to planning, and people may be sort of looking at this year now going, oh, Q1 is looking a little bit, it's looking a lot different than what I maybe thought it was going to look like with the lockdown. How do you go through that process with clients in terms of planning for the year ahead? How are you sort of advising people?
The starting point would always be for, first of all, take a step back. Before you go to start looking at, to look at Q1, have a look at the big picture. Because what's going to happen if you're only looking at Q1, but something is on the horizon in Q2 that is going to completely change your marketplace, you need to be planning now for that to happen. So my advice would be to people to step away, take a look at the bigger picture of what's going on in the external world, of all the stuff that we have no control over. And God knows there's a lot of that at the moment. But then start to identify what we actually know. And, the sort of things that we actually know at the moment, we know that we are in lockdown. We know that furlough is in place till the end of April. What assumptions can we make from that? We know that working from home is pretty much here to stay, that it's very unlikely that the majority of people, with all the research that's been done, says that people will not go back into working full time. So look at what's going on in the world that you have no control over, but ask yourself the question, how does this impact on my business? So, just talking to somebody this morning who was saying that there are certain sectors at the moment certain suppliers at the moment will not engage with people in hospitality and leisure industries because of the threat to their business at the moment. So if your business is dependent on that sector, where else can you take that to? Where are the areas of growth, and how do we identify? But how do we look to identify those? It's generally from looking at what's going on in the world. When you've got a bigger picture of what's going on externally, politically, economically, so in terms of society, in terms of technology, then you can bring that back to your own business and start to identify, what am I really good at? What do I need to improve? Where are my vulnerabilities? And above all, what gives me the edge over my competitors. And really keep an eye on your competitive market at the moment, because there are businesses going under, but equally there are new businesses coming into your marketplace. If I'm looking at if I'm looking at my market and I know that it's dying, I'm in all likelihood going to adapt or pivot my business and move into a new area. So there could potentially be, you know, is there a threat of new entrants as well as people leaving, my competitors leaving my marketplace? So look externally, look at the things you can't control. Once you have an idea of the potential opportunities or threats that provides for you, then look internally. Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? And then from there, you can start to make the plan for, okay, what resources do I need, whether they are financial resources, human resources, what activities do I need to engage in to achieve the objectives that I have now set for myself. And again, that may be around, you know, talking to a lot of the, you know, you have some amazing marketing people in the room at the moment. I know many of them, many of them are great. You know, is it a case of talking to some of those people and identifying how do I, you know, I know where I am, I know where I want to be, I know where my opportunities lie. How do I engage with the people who are working in those sectors?
Yeah, absolutely. I think keeping an eye on the market is something that people do naturally, but it's seeing, I think people are trying lots of new things at the moment. They're trying to adapt, they're trying to pivot, and some work, some are not, but it's keeping an eye on it. From our perspective, we always like to see how other networking events are evolving, particularly those using Remo up and down the country. It's interesting to see how they are evolving and seeing how behaviours are going to evolve amongst businesses. You spoke about the sort of analysing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and Mike Monk has mentioned that he uses a SWOT analysis with new clients to find ways of finding out what's going on. You know, that's a very simple way of doing it. Is that something you do with your clients quite a lot? Yeah.
Always, yeah. And not just, you know, it's not something that you just do, well, you know, we did this a year ago, let's never do this again. You revisit it because the market is continually evolving. So it's the internal analysis that you're doing. You identify where you're great, you identify where the improvements and vulnerabilities are. 6 months on, you've made those improvements. So you shift more stuff into the where we're great, but on the other hand, there's another, you know, that somebody else has brought in a product that's going to threaten us. So actually now we need to make improvements. There's another vulnerability coming in. It's not something that's set in stone, it's an evolution, which is why I'm always saying to people, don't be frightened to look back and learn and take that forward with you. But you know, you have to keep updating your external analysis and your internal analysis to see when it's changing.
And lastly, Sandra, we may be talking about things that people think, oh, I know this, I know that. And you probably see it quite a lot where people know this information, but they don't necessarily act on it. I mean, if there's any sort of nuggets of inspiration or nuggets of wisdom that you could share with people to consider, at least after this event, or think about after this event, what would it be? Maybe it's something that you typically suggest to people that you meet for the first time. So what would you share?
Don't be frightened of change. That change is actually a good thing. And also don't be frightened of changes that you implement not working. I think it's really, really, really important to have the approach to change that this is something we're going to try. If it works, that's great. If it doesn't, we will identify why it didn't work and we will change it again. It won't be a failure, it will be a learning experience. And I think at the moment, we have to look at what's going on around us as a continual learning. You know, and I think actually it's been quite good for quite a lot of us that, you know, we can get a little bit sort of set in our ways and we can get a little bit, you know, not quite complacent, but, you know, things are ticking over quite nicely. And if there is one good thing that came out of 2020, I think it shook an awful lot of us up in how we run our businesses. And from my point of view, that's a really good thing because, you know, sometimes the biggest challenge I have in sort of work that I do with people, it's not getting them to identify where they are and where they want to be. It's getting them to change behaviour within their businesses to enable them to succeed. So, you know, the best piece of advice I can be is do not be afraid of change, but be clear about why you're making the changes and the end result that you want. What are the outcomes you're aiming for?
Yeah, behaviours and mindset changes have been huge over the last year, and Claudia only mentioned it yesterday in a LinkedIn post that her thoughts go out to the people that back in March last year said, "Oh, I'm just going to wait for face-to-face networking events to return, and we won't be embracing online." But I mean, I don't need to say it to everyone in the room because everyone here is forward-thinking and has adapted to online. Lastly, Sandra, questions come in the Q&A from Ben Sayu. I hope I've pronounced that right, Ben. How have you helped teams adapt to working from home while still being collaborative?
That's a really, really, really good question, Ben. It's interesting because I think that's one of the huge growth areas for 2021 is going to be people who ask, because I think in the first sort of 6 months of people working from home and us being in lockdown, it was a case of we're going to come back to the office at some point. Actually, no, we're not. I think for most of us, we're not going to go back to the office at some point, or not in the way that we used to. And so I think actually there is a massive market out there for people who are looking at training for managers for remote management and remote leadership. You have to do what I was on the phone on the session with somebody this morning, and we're putting together a team engagement session for all of his group. So in an ideal world, we do it face to face. At the moment, we can't. Therefore, we will have to resort to doing it via a platform like this. It's all about communication, and it's all about making sure that but in some ways this hasn't changed. If you have a team of people working for you and you were never asking them how are you getting on, what are your challenges, what's going well in your working day, you are likely to have problems with them. That hasn't really changed. You just have it's the mode of communication that has changed, and the likelihood of them having problems of a different nature. Now, it might not be the work that's causing them problems, but it might be social isolation, it might be emotional well-being. And so I'd say to people, look out for signs. There is a whole host of information out there about how to look for signs for people who are struggling working remotely, but it's just about communication. Pick up the phone, talk to people. If you can meet people face to face, great. If you can't, you can meet people on the beach, you can meet people up on the downs one-on-one for a walk or a talk. But it's all about keeping in touch with people, and particularly the people who you feel are dipping under the radar. Are they okay? And do you really know what's going on in their lives?
Yeah, great. Well, we're out of time, Sandra, but really appreciate your insights. And Sandra will be in the room if anyone wants to chat. Highly recommend it. Very good voice of reason is Sandra. So thank you very much, Sandra. Thanks for your time.